Friends, I welcome all painting enthusiasts. You are with the School of Creativity, and I am artist educator Valeria Krylova. Today, I propose we draw a bouquet of violas. To start, we need to outline the edge of the table. A few centimeters, 2-3 centimeters, we have a table. We draw by eye, and you can orient yourself based on the texture of the canvas. Right now, we also need to sketch everything out in general terms, without details for now, to make sure that we have enough space for everything. We need to capture the size of the flowers. Here is one large flower that will be approximately like this. Another large flower is lying on the table and its petals are hanging over the edge. Here are two more flowers. Here are two large ones and two that are a little smaller. And here he is just right, closing the corner of the cup. It is beautiful, but quite simple. A gradient from cool gray to warm brown. Therefore, we won't make the flowers too small. Next, let's create the centers of the flowers. To be honest, you can even mark them with yellow. Mark the centers precisely. All the petals will be directed exactly towards the centers. All the small little petals will move slightly towards the center. And from the center, carefully draw the petals like this, and precisely. Be sure to dilute with oil. This consistency of the paint will apply well to the canvas and can be easily erased in case of any unwanted extra lines. Here you can see that the dark leaf is slightly lighter and the light leaves, and we will definitely return to the vase. Here we have a small area visible slightly. You can draw as if it were transparent in a way and you absolutely really need to round off our bowl. We will also look at symmetry after the background, and we will draw a small centimeter leg like this. Then we will start working on the background. Before starting, I moisten the brush with white paint and a little black paint. Next, you add a shade, for example, ochre pink for one part, and a more brownish shade for the second part. The white remains, but we also add brown, which can be slightly gilded with golden ochre. When we are at the stage of searching for color, take a little paint to understand. First of all, that all paints have different strengths. Some need a lot, while others need less. Do not add too much oil to the background under any circumstances. And I am gradually starting to switch to gray. I haven't wiped the brushes. White, black, pink, even gradient from gray. Somewhere between, add green, black, and white, as well as ochre, and a grayish color. We are now placing the shadow under the table. This shadow here is somewhat diffused. This way I remove the clear boundary between light and shadow. Let's add darkness with black paint. We can also paint a few millimeters of this shadow area under the plate. The falling shadow emphasizes both the plate and the flower. You can also add some darkness here. I emphasize the shadow on the right. I highlight the center of the table's overhang. And then I proceed to continue to work on the tabletop. We had gray on the palette, and I am literally lightening it. I am softening the shadow. The shadow under the object, in this case under the small plate, must have at least 1 millimeter. Next, we will work a bit with the vase, with a small amount of white and a drop of black. The darkest spot reflects either completely black or purple. We will certainly and definitely add them. But first we need to determine And against this background, our leg will be clearly visible now. We will fill in the initial preliminary outline with details. Here we used a bit of ultramarine, which goes under the layer of paint. If you are painting with acrylic, it has probably dried by now. Add more light white, and you can add a little bit of green. We will make a smoother transition for the stems and connect with white, finishing the work here. In the shadow part, adding a bit more darkness. Here, and then a reflection from the light petals nearby. Adding it along the contour of the petal. I diffuse it in our cup. Cooler color can be added, for example, ultramarine. And we have some areas bordering on black, for example, like this. And transition to lighter shades. When white is mixed with black, it will produce gray, and we do not want any gray in the flowers. Therefore, dark cobalt violet is the darkest color that we use. I go over the shadowed areas of each flower. You can squint your eyes tightly, and then it will be visible where we have darkness. The character of the flower is such that it is darker around the center and darker towards the edges. Since a lot of blending is planned, we do not add much oil, as the oil will spread between the fingers. I rotate the brush to give some petals their final shape. Dark cobalt violet. I can mix in some ultramarine and go over it. The layer is small, but the tail, practically every petal here is outlined with white paint. We will definitely complete this final touch with you at the very end. So, cobalt violet, dark red madder, and a little bit of white. Several petals are done in a more burgundy variation, and now we will work for quite a long time with the halftones. I add a little bit of white and this medium purple color, and I immediately mix it together with my finger or a brush to create a smoother transition. I do this carefully and slightly blend it. I create such delicate and tenderness in each petal. White plus purple. I want to get closer to the color of the top square. If you want, you can even add a little ultramarine to it. The brush glides from the tip to the center. Large petal cannot be painted with just one color, so we will also show a gradation of white here. I am filling it in with one color. The more shades there are, the more picturesque the work will look. Therefore, if you are introducing ready-made purple shades into your palette, do not linger on them. Beautiful and mesmerizing. Pinkish tones on my brush, so even in the pink I get a hint of purple here and there, slightly, a little bit. And these two light petals frame our dark petals, which belong to the flower that is lying on the table. We will definitely create such a difference between light and dark. Towards lightening the overall tone of the artwork. This involves a meticulous process where I am gradually adding more and more white paint to the canvas. By doing so, we are creating areas that are significant. The light areas are essential as they bring out the contrast and depth in the artwork, making certain elements stand out more prominently. It's a delicate balance to ensure that the light areas do not overpower the darker sections, but rather complement them. Must be carefully considered to achieve the desired outcome. The end result is a piece that has a dynamic range of tones, from the darkest shadows to the brightest highlights, all working together to create a cohesive and visually appealing artwork. Let's illuminate it up a little bit more, just a tad more. And we will move on to the white paint. Here the petal beautifully turns away. Its tips are dark. The center is light, a characteristic feature of pansies. And now let's move on to the white color as we proceed. Here you can also definitely a bit more. The highlights. The pristine white petals of the flowers the fresher it will look. Therefore, some moments that don't work out at first can indeed be left and revisited at the end. This is how we will proceed with the brightening of the white color. Now we will let the paint Let's work a little. Here, the brown color completes the wall. Here in front, on the contrary, it is lighter. Here is a white flash. The left side. To enhance this effect, we can add some subtle reflections of blue in that area and make necessary adjustments to ensure it blends seamlessly. Now, let's shift our focus to the direction remains consistent and doesn't disappear or become too faint when we make corrections to the tabletop. After addressing these areas, we can proceed to outline the leaves. For this next step, we can even use a small brush to sketch them delicately, adding fine details to bring them to life. Remember, the goal is to maintain the balance and harmony of the entire piece while making these enhancements. The corner of the vase, which is an exquisite piece of pottery, hides a splash of green paint that is not immediately visible unless you look closely. This vase, with its intricate designs and delicate craftsmanship, has a unique charm of the vase. Let's delve into the various shades of green I used. First, there's the dark green, which has a deep, rich hue reminiscent of a dense forest canopy. Then, there's the light green, which is fresh and vibrant, like the new leaves in spring. The dark green bordering again with black creates a striking contrast, adding depth and dimension to the design. Finally, the light green, with a little bit of yellow, and white adds a touch of brightness and warmth, making the overall appearance more lively and dynamic. Each shade was chosen with great care to ensure that the final result would be harmonious and visually appealing. The corner of the vase, which is an exquisite piece of pottery, hides a splash of green paint that is not immediately visible unless you look closely. This vase, with its intricate designs and delicate craftsmanship, has a unique charm. I took a very diverse green color for painting, carefully selecting shades that would complement each other and bring out the beauty of the vase. Let's delve into the various shades of green I used. First, there's the dark green, which has a deep, rich hue reminiscent of a dense forest canopy. Then there's the light green, which is fresh and vibrant, like the new leaves in spring. The dark green bordering again with black creates a striking contrast, adding depth and dimension to the design. Finally, the light green, with a little bit of yellow, and white adds a touch of brightness and warmth, making the overall appearance more lively and dynamic. Each shade was chosen with great care to ensure that the final result would be harmonious and visually appealing. I start with Russian green. You can also mix indigo yellow or ultramarine yellow yourself. Let's clear a bit of space on the palette. And now we will mix various shades of green colors together. The lower square can actually be taken in pure green, Russian green. If you are mixing, then we have more indigo here. Yellow. If you mix with indigo, then indigo will be more in this case. If I take Russian green, I can also add a small amount of ultramarine for a bit cooler tone. For a lighter color, I will take yellow and a bit of white, which will give a nice soft hue. To add a cool touch, I can again add a little ultramarine, which will provide a subtle, refreshing tone. And we will try to form the leaves using a gentle and smooth rolling motion of the brush without lifting it from the surface. This is a traditional technique used in painting to create the delicate and intricate shapes of leaves. When creating elements of plant ornamentation, it is important to ensure that each part is drawn carefully and meticulously without ever lifting the brush from the surface. This technique helps maintain fluidity and continuity in the design, resulting in a more cohesive and aesthetically pleasing final piece. Then, after a series of intricate processes and meticulous adjustments, elegant lines of yellow, green, and white light are obtained. These lines are not just simple beams of light. They are the result of careful calibration and precise engineering. The yellow light with its warm and inviting hue, the green light with its vibrant and refreshing tone, and the white light with its pure and pristine quality all come together to create a harmonious and visually stunning display. This combination of colors is achieved through the use of advanced technology and innovative techniques, ensuring that each line of light is perfectly aligned and balanced. The end result is a breathtaking array of colors that captivate the eye and enhance the overall visual experience. Green and, for example, a little ultramarine for a cool touch, for shadows, slightly. You can sharpen some peaks with a palette knife. Russian green, or we mix it. In the dark, when mixing, we use more indigo and ultramarine, regardless of what you are mixing with. In the light, we add yellow. There is little white. White will be used for highlights, for the leaves and for the petals as well. There will be quite a lot of it. And let's take a small brush to go over the details. When we say a lot of it, we are referring to the numerous intricate elements that make up the whole picture. These elements can range from tiny, almost imperceptible lines to more prominent features that stand out. Using a small brush is essential because it allows us to focus on these minute details with precision and care. Imagine trying to paint a delicate flower petal or the fine lines of a leaf. A larger brush would simply not provide the control needed for such tasks. Additionally, the small brush helps in blending colors seamlessly, ensuring that the transitions between different shades are smooth and natural. This technique is particularly useful in creating realistic textures and depth in the artwork. So, as we proceed, keep in mind the importance of taking our time and paying close attention to each stroke, as this will ultimately contribute to the overall quality and beauty of the final piece. The sepals are quite large. You can touch the sepals a bit more. Let's take a small brush. The twigs here are not that thin, so I won't focus on working with a fine brush to create perfectly thin tendrils. Today, as we work very carefully with a fine brush, we will take some oil and start carefully with the medium color. In the areas where we have both yellow and white colors, I have already outlined the direction of movement. Now, using a thicker version, I repeat the gliding technique with oil paint. This time, however, I am not using as much oil as we did at the beginning when we were working on the preliminary sketch. Instead, I am using just enough oil to leave a fairly even mark in the same place without increasing the size of the mark. The goal here is to maintain consistency in the texture and appearance of the paint. Additionally, I make the tips of the sepals darker in this section because they catch the light and shadow in a particular way. The light and shadow play a crucial role in adding depth and dimension to the painting. By darkening the tips of the sepals, I am able to create a more realistic and visually appealing effect. This technique requires a careful balance of pressure and paint to achieve the desired outcome. It is important to pay attention to the way the light interacts with the different elements of the painting, as this can greatly impact the overall composition. The process involves a lot of patience and precision, as each stroke contributes to the final result. By taking the time to carefully apply the oil paint and adjust the light and shadow, I am able to enhance the details and bring the painting to life. This method not only adds depth, but also highlights the intricate details of the sepals, making them stand out against the background. The careful application of oil paint in this manner is essential for achieving a realistic and captivating effect in the painting. Therefore, I add Russian green with oil to the base color. I add shadows and a little later, the light. When I begin the intricate process of painting, I delicately hold the brush almost by the very tip, ensuring that I have maximum control over its movements. I then proceed to roll the brush gently between my fingers, a technique that I have perfected over many years of practice. This careful maneuvering results in the creation of exquisite floral ornaments that are reminiscent of the delicate and intricate patterns found in nature's botanical wonders. Each stroke is deliberate and thoughtful, contributing to the overall composition in a meaningful way. Additionally, we incorporate subtle strokes of light, which add depth and dimension to the artwork, making it come alive with a vibrant and dynamic quality. The entire process is a harmonious blend of skill, creativity, and attention to detail, resulting in a piece that is both visually stunning and rich in artistic expression. A lot of white paint. Check to see if it needs to be refreshed, and also check the oil. When you are painting, you can take a little bit of white paint and mix it with a hint of yellow. This combination can give you a nice, warm tone. However, it's important to keep in mind that this mixture will get dirty quite quickly. After every 2-3 strokes, you should check the brush to see if the paint has become dirty. If you notice that the paint is already dirty, be sure to clean the brush thoroughly before continuing. Sometimes you might find that the paint has mixed with green, which is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it can add an interesting dimension to your painting. Remember, we use pressure on the brush to achieve different effects. By varying the pressure, you can create a range of textures and strokes that will enhance your artwork. So, always be mindful of the state of your brush and the paint, and adjust your technique accordingly to get the best result. Some areas we outline, while in others we just add highlights. Try not to get too caught up in the outlines. In some places, we just added a little highlight. It sometimes indeed looks much more picturesque than just an outline. Here, the greenery also encroaches on the purple flower. Glare. I take a tube of white paint, carefully squeezing out a small amount onto my palette. However, I notice that the white paint is already slightly contaminated with traces of other colors from previous use. As I begin to apply the paint to the canvas with gentle, deliberate strokes, new and unexpected shades. These new shades add depth and complexity to the painting, giving it a unique character. The process is fascinating to watch as the wet paint continues to evolve and change, capturing the dynamic nature of the creative process. Each stroke and blend tells a
story, contributing to the overall composition in a way that is both spontaneous and intentional. The canvas becomes a living, breathing work of art, reflecting the artist's vision and the unpredictable. We apply a coat of white paint to our basic color, ensuring that the surface is evenly covered. However, it is important to note that the brush can sometimes get dirty during this process. To address this, we will now blend the purple paint into the white. For this blending process, we can use either a small or medium-sized brush, depending on the area we are working on. Paint. To achieve this smooth transition, I will clean the brush almost after every single stroke, ensuring that the colors do not mix unintentionally, and that the transition from white to purple is gradual and even. This careful attention to detail will result in a beautifully blended color gradient, somewhere from beautifully ranging purple to white, so that you get veins like this, in color and patterns. We can definitely go back to the purple paint and add a bit more. If we blend it right now, we will lose this effect. Here you can even let it dry a little. If you are working with acrylics, then yes, everything is already dry. Those who work with oil feel that the layer is still movable. Sometimes this movable layer can get in the way a bit more, and sometimes you have to wait a little longer for it to dry slightly. I make soft and smooth transitions between shades of purple, mainly using a lighter color to achieve a gentle gradient effect. If the white paint isn't going on smoothly right now, we'll need to wait a bit for the first layer to dry completely before continuing. These delicate veining effects appear just when the layer of paint is still wet, creating a beautiful transitions to ensure a seamless blend. After each brush stroke, I make sure to wipe the brush clean to avoid any unwanted mixing of colors. By taking our time and allowing each layer to dry properly, I work without color. You can whiskers will If you want to add darkness to your artwork, you can use a small brush with black color. This technique is often used to create shadows or to add depth to sometimes overwhelm the other elements of your work. Therefore, it's crucial to use this method sparingly and with careful consideration. Sometimes the natural light and shadows in your environment can provide enough contrast without the need for additional darkness. Take small breaks while working to keep an eye on things. This will help you to step back and assess. Taking breaks can prevent eye strain and help maintain your overall focus and creativity. Remember, the key to successful artwork is balance and moderation in all aspects. First of all, during the break, you will need to check the evenness of the table and the evenness of the vase. At this point in our process, we still haven't completed the task of highlighting the intricate details on the vase. This step is crucial
In some places, white paint can already be introduced. If so, we might let's add a little bit and I lighten a little bit more and more. So let's take a look at our work from a distance and see how it looks. Here we forgot to go over the tip with some white paint, and with the help of oil, we will go over the colors together, ensuring everything blends perfectly. A small amount of oil for the single color, and if you just squeezed out the paint and it is quite runny, you can go without thinning it. I take a small brush, and as the brush gets dirty, we must wipe it. Pay close attention to ensure that the flowers are juicy and bright. What we are going to do now is highlights, which is called enlivening. It is this that will absolutely make the flowers sparkle and shine. Therefore, we are ensuring that the paint is clean. We definitely have a purple outline on a white flower, dark purple. There is light purple on the distant petals, on those flowers that may lie in the shade here and there is completely white paint. I want to start with this as I currently have clean oil and clean white paint. I am picking up the paint and I start outlining the petals. I carefully roll the brush between my fingers so that all the paint I have picked up. The paint I planned ends up delicately and gently on the canvas. I wipe the brush for the next section and pick up the paint again. Here we have such a beautiful turned petal. I press down on the brush a bit harder and then release it again. It's best to draw in one motion. You can repeat with a counter movement, but no more than that, because the more times we go over the white paint, the less white it will be. And now let's take the second brush to make some adjustments where it might be needed. Imagine I want to sharpen this delicate petal. To achieve this, I might need to carefully make the tips a bit neater and more defined, ensuring they look precise and clean. To be more precise, I am currently working with two brushes. With one, I apply highlights to the areas that need to be brightened, and with the other, I correct the dark areas that need to be toned down. It's quite inconvenient and time-consuming to move one brush back and forth between the different areas. A little highlight is coming from the center, which adds a nice touch to the overall effect. The edge is torn and irregular and uneven. You can roll the brush between your fingers to carefully create just such an uneven outline. You can carefully repeat your strokes. When we applied the paint, it settled in a certain way, and you can distinguish the individual brush strokes as if I am delicately tracing them. Here again is a large highlight. And here you can take some paint that is not too white. You probably already have quite a few pink-purple shades already mixed on your palette. If you are working with acrylic and they have all dried, then mix in some more. like these waves. I carefully and gently bring the edge of the petal delicately onto the plate. Here, these 2.5 petals. The white paint is still spreading onto the flower, so I am adding more. And here I slightly pull the paint towards the center of the petal. If the purple is used too heavily, it might make sense to wait for a while, a couple of days for example, until the main layer dries. The work won't be completely dry by the end, but it will be easier to work on a layer that has already dried a bit. So it's up to you. There should be absolutely no problems with acrylic since it has already completely dried and it is thoroughly ensured that it is fully dried properly. Right away, while we are working with the white paint, we can take this opportunity to add more highlights to the petals of the flowers. This will help to bring out the delicate details and make them stand out more vividly. Additionally, let's also mark the center of the flowers carefully, so that our work gradually takes on a more finished and polished look. By doing this, we ensure that the painting has a balanced composition and that each element is given the attention it deserves. The highlights will create a sense of depth and dimension, making the petals appear more lifelike and three-dimensional. The center marking will serve as a focal point, drawing the viewer's eye and adding to the overall harmony of the piece. This step is crucial in achieving a professional and aesthetically pleasing result. Here you can load the paint more thickly with a palette knife. Next, we have a highlight here. You can take a little bit of white paint with oil and work in the center of each petal. I take a bit of paint and the bristles of the brush don't have time to clump together, and you can even use your hands to create something like a fan brush. I apply the paint to the tip and gently stroke it like a brush. A stiff brush will work well for this kind of work. To elaborate, when you take a bit of white paint with oil, you should ensure that the paint is evenly distributed on the brush. This helps in creating a smooth and consistent stroke. The bristles of the brush, when not clumped together, allow for a more detailed and refined application of paint. Using your hands to create a fan brush effect can add a unique texture to your work. Applying the paint to the tip and gently stroking it like a brush ensures that the paint is applied delicately and precisely. A stiff brush, due to its firm bristles, is particularly effective for this kind of detailed work, providing control and precision. Somewhere there are non-white ones, and somewhere there are more purple ones. Therefore, you can immediately use a slightly purple color instead of a perfectly white one, considering that it will mix on the canvas with the still slightly wet layer of purple paint. If everything is already dry, if you have set the work aside for a few days, or if you are painting with acrylic, then be sure to take a more purple paint. And with the purple, you might want to bring it back into the background. But here you can decide for yourself. For some, it might be enough, while others may want to add more of these purple arrows again for creating depth. You need to squint really hard and look for the darkest areas, which can be quite challenging. The darkest part is right here at the bend of the petal, where it frames the previous petal, and from the center black comes out, creating a striking contrast. This contrast is essential in highlighting the intricate details of the flower. Of course, we won't use black. If we apply purple without mixing it with white, we get a quite decent dark purple color, which is rich and vibrant. This color choice is crucial in maintaining the natural look of the flower. The flower lying there also has a not completely white base, but rather a pink-purple one, which adds to its unique beauty and charm. This subtle color variation enhances the overall aesthetic appeal of the flower. We carefully outline our strokes with meticulous attention. Somewhere the line is continuous, and somewhere it is broken. The main thing is that when we attach it firmly, our flower looks cohesive. In this section, you have the option to pull these arrows from the center, which allows for a more detailed and precise adjustment. Additionally, at the top of the interface, we have several key highlights that are important to note. These highlights include various features and functionalities that are designed to enhance your overall experience. By utilizing these tools, they can benefit your specific needs and tasks. I even decide to darken the upper stem a little more. The green paint will enhance the highlight. I am currently darkening the green a bit, and the highlight will also pop against its background. Another petal, quite large, and here. The highlights are not in a single color. They might even be broken into 3. Now, looking further, if it is colorful enough, maybe we won't add extra highlights. The purple paint didn't lay down well at first. The white paint didn't lay down well either. But now, after waiting a little for it to dry, I am working with a stiff brush. You can use a size 1 brush, but a stiff brush will give a more general stroke and a broader highlight. Then, I can go over the details with a size 1 brush. I would even like to add a bit of pink to this petal before outlining it. So I take some white paint. Don't be afraid to apply the paint thickly. The light areas love it when the paint is applied thickly. As I continue to work on this painting, I notice that the colors are blending beautifully, creating a harmonious effect. The green paint, when applied in layers, gives a rich, deep tone that contrasts nicely with the lighter highlights. The purple paint, although tricky to work with initially, eventually settles into a smooth, even layer that complements the other colors. The white paint, which was also difficult to apply at first, now adds a crisp, clean highlight that makes the other colors stand out. Using a stiff brush allows me to create bold, confident strokes that add texture and depth to the painting. The size 1 brush, on the other hand, is perfect for adding fine details and delicate highlights. By combining these two brushes, I can achieve a balance of broad, sweeping strokes and intricate details. Adding a bit of pink to the petal gives it a warm, vibrant touch that enhances the overall composition. The thick application of paint in the light areas creates a sense of dimension and luminosity, making the painting come to life. Each stroke, each layer of paint, contributes to the final effect, creating a piece that is both dynamic and cohesive. The process of painting is not just about applying color to a canvas. It's about observing, adjusting, and refining until the desired effect is achieved. It's a journey of exploration and discovery, where each decision, each brushstroke, brings the painting closer to completion. If the purple doesn't lay down well, you can go over the entire painting with white paint if you're in the mood. But then after it dries, go over it once more with white paint, currently drawing. It is in the light, it is our central focus, and it is all outlined with white paint. And if we have flowers that are not outlined in purple, yes, with such a bluish or pinkish paint, they can turn out on their own when you work on the wet paint. Here, the highlight is drawn far away, and there it already transitions into darkness. I will remove a little and blend it a bit more into the purple paint. Here, you should also look. The petal is not outlined from the beginning, but rather where it is supposed to come into the light. Here I want to lift it a little. But there it is lifted with a slightly bluish color. Let's find the blue. The greenery in the garden needs to be carefully wiped down, because the vibrant green color doesn't come through as it should. I took a napkin and gently wiped it a little bit, but it didn't seem to help much. Maybe you can see some bluish tint there, but mine has blended in with the surroundings and gotten lost. So, I'm carefully putting it back in place to restore its original look. Let's continue with our task and make sure everything is in order. The process of wiping the greenery is important to ensure that the natural beauty and color are maintained. It's a delicate task that requires attention to detail and patience. By doing this, we can make sure that the garden looks its best and the greenery stands out as it should. Now, let's move on to the next step and see what else needs to be done to keep the garden in perfect condition. The white petal, look here. The outline is also for giving neatness and smoothness to the lines. If you already have it neat and smooth on the white, then it might not be worth going over it a second time. I would slightly enlarge this petal a bit more, and we will add a little grayish color, such as grayish green, like on our vase. Therefore, it is advisable to find a color from the vase. Here, it is just light on light. That's why the artist decided to complicate the flower a bit in color. In the center, I want to twist in purple. The white petal, as you can see, has a very delicate and intricate outline. This outline is crucial for giving the petal a sense of neatness and smoothness, which is essential for the overall aesthetic of the flower. If you have already achieved a neat and smooth appearance on the white petal, it might not be necessary to go over it a second time. However, I would suggest slightly enlarging this petal to give it a more prominent presence. Additionally, we will add a subtle grayish color to the petal, such as a grayish-green hue, similar to the color found on our vase. This will help to create a harmonious color palette. It is advisable to find a color from the vase because it provides a light-on-light effect, which can be very pleasing to the eye. This is why the artist decided to add a bit more complexity to the flower's color scheme. In the center of the flower, I want to incorporate a twist of purple to add depth and interest. The white petal, as you can see, has a very delicate and intricate outline. This outline is crucial for giving the petal a sense of neatness and smoothness, which is essential for the overall aesthetic of the flower. If you have already achieved a neat and smooth appearance on the white petal, it might not be necessary to go over it a second time. However, I would suggest slightly enlarging this petal to give it a more prominent presence. Additionally, we will add a subtle grayish color to the petal, such as a grayish-green hue, similar to the color found on our vase. This will help to create a harmonious color palette. It is advisable to find a color from the vase because it provides a light-on-light effect, which can be very pleasing to the eye. This is why the artist decided to add a bit more complexity to the flower's color scheme. In the center of the flower, I want to incorporate a twist of purple to add depth and interest. And I continue to outline
This particular petal, which is part of a larger flower, can be outlined in a shade of purple. This is especially useful if there is a certain sharpness or edge in the petal that you find unsatisfactory or that does not meet your aesthetic preferences. In this case, outlining it in purple can help to soften and refine its appearance. Here, in this specific instance, I even want to lift the petal slightly to give it a more dynamic and lively look. Let's take a closer look at what we have achieved with the application of white on the last lightest petal. The white adds a delicate touch, enhancing the overall lightness and brightness of the petal. Additionally, there are subtle gray-green notes present here, which contribute to the complexity and depth of the color palette. These gray-green hues add an interesting contrast and complement the other colors beautifully, creating a harmonious and visually appealing effect. By paying attention to these details and making thoughtful adjustments, we can achieve a more refined and aesthetically pleasing result. We carefully take paint samples from the specifically highlighted areas of the ancient and beautifully crafted vase to analyze its composition and history. From the green, you can only use it in a diluted form, but we also have a light flower, so the white can be incorporated as well. Here you can essentially leave a completely light flower. There is no urgent need to introduce any shadow elements at this point in time, so go with your mood and personal preference. Now we will carefully and meticulously add the purple outline to the design. Purple with oil and a smooth texture. We carefully craft a skirt for our delicate flower to gracefully glide in the breeze. The process involves selecting the finest materials and meticulously stitching each part to ensure it flows beautifully. I take oil and gently apply it to the fabric, enhancing its sheen and softness. From a distance, we observe the buds, noting their subtle movements and the way they catch the light. The entire scene is a testament to the harmony between nature and our handiwork, creating a visual symphony that captivates the eye and soothes the soul. Each element, from the skirt to the buds, plays a crucial role in this enchanting display, showcasing the beauty of our creation. Take a moment to look over there. In addition to that, you have the option to add a couple of highlights to enhance the overall appearance. This can make the scene more visually appealing and draw attention to specific areas. Let's take another detailed look at the leaves once more. We can refresh and go over some of the key highlights and important points that we previously discussed. If the colors on the fabric have faded a little over time, you might notice that they are not as vibrant and bright as they once were. This can happen due to exposure to sunlight, frequent washing, or simply the passage of time. It's a natural process that affects many materials, causing them to lose their original luster and intensity. I would also like to sharpen the leaves in some places a bit more and add some details, so I will return to the green paint now. And here and there, with a fine brush and some oil, I will carefully and delicately, meticulously add sharp tips. As we delve deeper into the intricate details of this painting process, we find ourselves at the final stages of our artistic journey. At this point, the scene is a bit dark, and I feel the need to enhance the depth and richness of the shadows and light. To achieve this, I will be adding some more shades to the shadows and light areas. Specifically, I am going to introduce a little more yellow to the green hues, and perhaps even a drop of white to bring out the highlights. These subtle yet clarifying touches can be effectively achieved using oil paints. Now, I will proceed to add the yellow centers to the flowers, which can be done using either a palette knife or a brush. Personally, I find the palette knife to be more convenient as it is easier to clean. It's important to note that while all the planned paint should ideally end up on the canvas, some of it may inevitably get stuck in the bristles of the brush. This is a common occurrence and can be managed with proper cleaning techniques. Additionally, I want to emphasize the importance of layering the paint carefully to create a sense of depth and texture. By building up the layers gradually, we can achieve a more realistic and visually appealing result. This process requires patience and attention to detail, but the end result is well worth the effort. As we continue, I will also be blending the colors meticulously to ensure smooth transitions and a harmonious overall composition. This step is crucial in bringing the painting to life and making it visually cohesive. Finally, I will be adding some finishing touches to enhance the overall vibrancy and balance of the painting. These final adjustments are what truly bring the artwork together and make it stand out. Well, it's much easier to clean a palette knife than a brush.
Cadmium yellow medium is a vibrant and versatile color that can be used in various ways to enhance your painting. This particular shade of yellow is known for its rich, warm hue and its ability to bring a sense of brightness and energy to any artwork. If you want to create a more dynamic and interesting center for your artwork, you can mix the cadmium yellow medium with other colors. For example, you might choose to blend it with a medium cadmium lemon, or even add some white paint to achieve a lighter, more luminous effect. This combination can help to create a focal point that draws the viewer's eye and adds depth to the composition. When applying the paint, I like to place 3 elongated dots after each movement. This technique helps to create a sense of rhythm and flow in the composition, making the painting feel more cohesive and intentional. After each application, I make sure to wipe the palette knife clean to avoid any unwanted color mixing. This step is crucial for maintaining the purity of the colors and ensuring that each layer of paint is applied smoothly. Adding white paint to the details can help to highlight certain areas and bring more depth to the painting. It's important to step back and look at your work from a distance to see what can be improved or added. From afar, certain elements become more apparent, such as the center of the flower, which might get lost if not properly defined. In this case, I noticed that the center was not as prominent because the petal was too white. To address this, I decided to complicate the color scheme by introducing some gray-green tones. This not only adds complexity, but also helps to show the thickness and texture of the flower's cup. By carefully considering these details and making thoughtful adjustments, you can create a more compelling and visually appealing piece of art. The process of painting is not just about applying colors to a canvas. It's about understanding how different elements work together to create a harmonious and balanced composition. Each decision, from the choice of colors to the techniques used, plays a crucial role in the final outcome. By experimenting with different approaches and paying attention to the finer details, you can elevate your artwork to a new level of sophistication and beauty. Let's do this with a thin paint as well. It doesn't have to be perfect. White can be mixed with blue a little bit, slightly. and we dilute it with oil to achieve the desired consistency. The resulting mixture has a thickness that is not small, ensuring it maintains its intended texture and viscosity. Therefore, there is no need to draw a fine line here. When you examine the edge closely, you will see that the distinction is clear and does not require further clarification. The boundary is already well defined and easily recognizable, making any additional effort to delineate it unnecessary. Essentially, the existing demarcation is sufficient and does not warrant further action or scrutiny. I carefully lighten 2 spots with white paint, applying a bit more paint here, and precisely. Next, I want to take a look from a distance. I want these 2 flowers to be better visible against each other. I will add a little bit of purple to the one at the bottom. Color without compromising the overall color scheme, and balance the overall aesthetic and design of the space for the light of shadows. This is the method I use to add a little bit of light purple color right here in this specific area, ensuring it blends well with the surrounding shades. And let's just put a signature and see how our painting looks in the frame. Just a little. You can definitely finish it in the frame, as some details become even more visible, clearly in the baguette. This is the detailed and fascinating story that we have come up with together today, filled with interesting events and memorable moments. We look for what catches our eye. Be sure to send photos of the works you are creating with the School of Creativity. Sometimes certain flaws can be noticeable in the photos. Honestly, you can still add a bit more purple here. Firstly, it stands out very sharply. The petal ends right here. I want to extend the design a little further by adding more elements and also incorporate a bit of purple color to the center area to enhance its visual appeal. Like these, as if with little arrows. Now the central area will become more visible when I frame it as if with purple color in this particular context. When you look at the color purple, especially when it is devoid of any white elements, it can appear to be almost as dark as black. This visual effect is quite striking and dramatic. This is precisely the kind of scene we are experiencing with you right now, where the absence of lighter shades makes everything seem much darker and more intense. Be sure to keep drawing with the teachers of the School of Creativity. Until we meet again, dear friends, goodbye.